Before we get started, a quick heads up. Presidents Unplugged now has merch. If you want to support the show and represent the podcast in your daily life, you can at presidentsunpluggedmerch.com. That is presidentsunpluggedmerch.com. Now, let's get into today's episode. I have a dream. Those words still echo through American history, but what does that dream really mean? Why did Martin Luther King Jr. even have a dream? Did he ever achieve it? And why is he remembered not just as some random speaker, but as one of the most influential voices in American history? Somebody whose words brought real change. Welcome to the Martin Luther King Jr. Day special. This is Presidents Unplugged. Let's do this. Martin Luther King was born on January 15th, 1929 in Atlanta, Georgia. From a very young age, he experienced the harsh realities of segregation. One story from his childhood really stands out. He had a friend who wasn't allowed to play with him simply because of the color of their skin. One day they're just playing a recess together, and the next day they're taken apart for seemingly no reason other than the color of their skin. Even as a child, he could see the unfairness and cruel nature of racial prejudice. King's parents played a huge role in shaping his values. His father, Martin Luther King Sr., was a pastor who taught him about faith, courage, and moral leadership. His mother, Alberta, instilled compassion and the importance of education in King's life. Together, they raised a young boy who would one day stand before thousands and thousands of people and call a nation to justice. After a segregated childhood, King entered college at just 15 years old. That's impressive now, but back then, it was even crazier. And after college, he went to seminary, that's pastor school, by the way, where he trained to become a minister. Seminary wasn't just about preaching to King, it was about learning how to lead, inspire, and guide a community toward moral justice. Faith was at the heart of Martin Luther King's life. He believed deeply that true justice aligned with the teachings of Christ, and being a preacher, that kind of helps him in that way. He understood that spreading equality, compassion, and love wasn't just moral, it was spiritual. King himself said, faith is taking the first step, even when you don't see the whole staircase. His faith gave him the courage to challenge injustice and to inspire people to act peacefully, yet powerfully. Martin Luther King didn't just come up with these ideas by himself. Obviously, he got some from his parents, but while he was in seminary, King learned about a pretty important Indian figure named Gandhi. He was an Indian leader who advocated for nonviolent resistance. You can create change without violence. You can create change just by speaking your mind. No aggression or violence is necessary. Change will happen. King realized after learning of the teachings of Gandhi, that you could fight oppression with peace, using words, using actions, and using conviction to make a lasting difference without hurting anybody. One of King's first major victories came in Montgomery, Alabama in 1955. And we all know this story. During the bus boycotts, Rosa Parks would not give her seat to a white man when she was asked to sit at the back of the bus. Rosa Parks then, after refusing, gets arrested. Yeah, that sounds fair. After she was put in jail for a short time, King stepped in. And he helped organize a citywide boycott of the buses. A boycott, to put it simply, is refusing to take something. It can happen in trade or even in buses. African Americans simply just stopped riding the buses. That's not aggressive. He showed that peaceful collective action could create real pressure for change. The result? Segregation on Montgomery buses ended. It was over. Man, that was effective. Martin Luther King, in one of his first ever major pushes for equality, learned firsthand that these nonviolent actions that he's been learning about could cause real change. Over the next 12 years, King didn't stop. He became the backbone of the civil rights movement. He gave over 2,500 speeches, and even more impressively, he got arrested not once, not twice, not 16 times, but almost 30 times. All for standing up peacefully for justice. Martin Luther King's speeches, just like the one I played at the beginning, were powerful because he wasn't just speaking. He was challenging a nation to live up to its own ideals. Didn't we just write that all men are created equal? And this is how we're treating our people? Martin Luther King himself once said, "Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere." Reminding our country that equality in America isn't an option. It's written on our founding documents, for crying out loud. Our Declaration of Independence stated that all men are created equal. So why aren't we living that out? There are certain countries in the world where equality isn't even a dream, isn't even thought about. His voice carried a lot of weight. The country realized that maybe we are wrong. Maybe change needed to happen. While George Washington himself might not have had an Instagram page, Presidents Unplugged does. If you want to see some presidential content and overall updates on the show, come to the Instagram at Presidents_Unplugged. See you there. So, after all of King's speeches, boycotts, and action, he was invited to the White House by President Kennedy. Whew! Man, I was really scared that I wasn't going to mention a president and my agent was going to fire me. Oh, good. Okay. President Kennedy invited him to the White House. Kennedy admired Martin Luther King deeply. He loved the idea of civil rights. He didn't know how to properly put them into practice. And through working together, they were so close to finding that dream that he was wishing for. But something got in the way. In November of 1963, just a few months after he made his I Have a Dream speech, Kennedy was assassinated. Everything gone. Their friendship, possible civil rights, disappeared. But wait, we have Lyndon Johnson. After Kennedy was assassinated, his vice president came in. You know the deal. Lyndon Johnson was just as passionate about civil rights as Kennedy was. Woohoo! Which allowed our country to pass the Civil Rights Act of 1964, which banned discrimination based on race, color, religion, sex, or national origin. Martin Luther King had worked so hard to make his dream a reality. Okay, great. Thank you, Martin Luther King, for your efforts. You can now leave. Oh no, Martin Luther King's journey was not over. Just because the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was passed, sunshine and rainbows, doop-de-doop-de-doo, the world was still not perfect. We still had hate. We still had prejudice. We still had poverty. And we still had war. Martin Luther King's mission was not over at all. He continued to speak. He continued to fight. And he continued to dream. One of his most moving speeches of all time came right near the end of his life. On April 3rd, 1968, he said this.
We've got some difficult days ahead, but it really doesn't matter with me now because I've been to the mountaintop. I don't mind. Like anybody, I would like to live a long life. Longevity has its place. But I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. And He's allowed me to go up to the mountain. And I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord.
I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as people will get to the promised land. The next day in Memphis, Tennessee, on April 4th, 1968, he was assassinated at just 39 years old. Yeah, let me say that again. 39 years old. Did you pick up your jaw from the floor? Okay. Even in his unbelievably short life, Martin Luther King accomplished extraordinary change. He restructured the way that Americans think. He gave thousands of speeches, he inspired millions, and reshaped the moral conscience of the nation. As he said, the time is always right to do what is right. In recognition of his impact, President Ronald Reagan, we'll talk about him later in the season, signed a law establishing Martin Luther King Jr. Day as a federal holiday on the third Monday in January. Fun fact, Martin Luther King's birthday is January 15th. So the holiday moves a little bit each year. This year, for example, it falls on January 19th. And for anyone celebrating a January 19th birthday like my friend Ben Gata, happy birthday, Ben Gata. Sorry, I had to shout him out. Martin Luther King's words continue to inspire to this day. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. His message is timeless. And without it, the America that we know today might look very different. Martin Luther King Jr. was an inspiration, a voice for justice whose echo will be felt for generations. His faith, courage, and unwavering commitment to equality proves a great point to us even today. We might not be getting on a podium to speak to 250,000 people like he did with his famous I Have a Dream speech. We might not be passing acts in the United States government in our lifetime. His words can prove a great point to us. Dream big. Fight for your dream. We might not think about it much today with the context of history, but Martin Luther King's dream could have never become a reality if he didn't speak up and fight for change, if he didn't fight for his dream. Today, we have kids dreaming about great things. I want to be an astronaut. I want to be a doctor. My dream, I want to be the president one day. Those are big dreams. And don't let anybody in the world tell you that your dream is too big to conquer. Martin Luther King Jr.'s dream that he stated in 1963, at the time, was pretty colossal, was pretty unlikely. But through Martin Luther King's drive and dedication, his dream became a reality. And this is where his story aligns with us today. No matter how big or small your dreams are, you better chase for them. You better fight for your dreams. Because you never, ever know how your dreams, how your motivations, how what you fight for can change the world and make it a better place. And that is why Martin Luther King Jr. is so important. Tune in next Friday as we talk about Zachary Taylor, a man who was a famous war general, fought through the ranks, won the election, and became our 12th U.S. president. How beautiful. And then he ate too many cherries and milk and died. Hold on, what? This man died from eating too many cherries? Or did he? Find out that and much more next week on Presidents Unplugged. I'm Ty Svensson, and I'll see you soon. God bless. We need to make an executive decision now. The executive decision to follow Presidents Unplugged on Apple Podcasts or Spotify today to be notified weekly that your favorite presidential podcast has released new content. Now, let's get back to the show.